What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Why We Love PlayStation VR. Sitting across from me this week and every week, and strangely wearing the same clothes as last week and drinking the very same water bottle as last week. I don't know if that's sanitary.
Yeah, this one's less full.
Desra.
Hi. Sitting across from me, of course, is Brian Paul.
You know what's crazy? Is people always comment, they're like, Brian, you look really tired. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's because on the Gamescast, we film first thing in the morning. And then with you, I film last thing at night. No one ever sees me when I'm actually awake. I'm either like waiting for the caffeine to kick in, or like it's all wearing off. And there's no in between. Yeah. Des, we talked about Skyrim last week.
We did?
We did.
That was you?
That was us.
Yeah. Yes, we did. Skyrim. Well, not just Skyrim, but Skyrim with the PlayStation VR.
The good one.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If you missed last week's discussion,
go back and watch it right now. We'll wait. Okay, they're back.
Okay. It is amazing. It took a game that was already mind-bogglingly huge and made it bigger. You feel like you're really there. And I know that's so cliche when we're talking about VR, but really you're looking around and you're seeing, oh, those mountains that were just kind of like gray shapes before, they're really, really huge. Yeah. And you can look down in the valleys and see how beautiful they are. And when, wolves attack from behind the rocks, it's like, oh crap, there's actually wolves there.
And I've said before that like fantasy games just like aren't my thing. It's like it's just a genre that I've tried to get into. Mm-hmm. People have strange names, towns, locations, everything just sounds weird. And I'm like, and I can't remember like who's who because of that. Yeah. It's like it's not like this guy's named Bob and he's got a girlfriend Sarah and they're cheating on each other. No, it's like Shushina Bob and da 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 da.
But here's the thing. Actually, you mentioned that there's what's amazing about Skyrim is these characters do have lives when you're not there.
Absolutely.
They still do things and you can find out that someone actually has been sleeping around with their husband. And, if you want to follow them around, you can watch it happening. Or if you just go and come back, you can see the aftermath of them discovering these things.
But the thing that finally roped me into Skyrim is obviously that it was in VR. VR makes everything better. But the fact that you're that person.
Yeah.
You're not just watching that person or you have a 4-foot separation from that person's viewpoint on a screen. Suddenly you are that person, and even if you don't remember Shadadada's name, you remember who that person is.
Yeah.
Because you interacted with them one-on-one in VR. It's a person now in your virtual life.
Yeah.
And it's like you almost forget that it's a fantasy, or I almost forget that it's a fantasy setting. I kind of overlook that because it's part of my life instead of part of that person's life.
We talked before about in VR where NPCs, when they're done right, they have this weight to them because they're right there in 3-dimensional. And hey, this is a 6-year-old game.
This is a 6-year-old Bethesda game.
Yeah, so a lot of the character models, but because they're in depth right there, I mean, the literal depth gives the characters a depth that didn't exist before. I find myself, when I played the first time through in regular, I don't know, what do we call, just flat?
Non-VR?
Yeah, non-VR, on the Xbox 360, right? I found myself
He doesn't know what a PlayStation 3 is.
Yes.
Never heard of one before.
I just found myself rushing from, checkpoint to checkpoint, going through the quests and just fast clicking through, conversations because I don't care what they're actually saying. Just tell me what I need to do. But now I find myself walking around and just listening to conversations.
Yeah.
Taking my time through towns and noticing little things on buildings that I'd never noticed before. It's.
I think we need to talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
Details.
Things
you've never noticed before.
Yes.
You're playing on a standard PlayStation 4.
Yes.
I'm playing on a PlayStation 4 Pro.
Yes.
You've noticed some differences, I'm sure, between the two.
Yeah. It was noticeably because my first time playing it was actually
during the live stream
on Brian's Pro.
Now the thing is that up until this point, PlayStation VR is now 13 months old.
Oh,
it's like a baby. We're just going to count it by months instead of that's over a year. And now, and up until this point, there really hasn't been a game that made that difference stand out. That made the difference between PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 4 Pro noteworthy. There's some people out there that have been like, oh, you need to have a Pro if you're playing in PlayStation VR. I've never found a game that does that. Like Starblood Arena looks significantly better, but it's still an awesome game no matter what you do. After playing roughly 20 hours on my Pro, I finally switched everything over to my standard PS4.
Okay.
And oh man, I was totally surprised.
Yeah.
It's not just like it's not just that the depth of field is different. It's not just that that the horizon ends at a certain point. It's not just detail. It's kind of everything.
Yeah, especially like once characters move more than, let's say, 10 or 15 virtual feet in front of you, it's like, I've done this.
Yeah.
There's a significant difference in the graphics. But here's where I'm going to say, I don't care.
Sure.
Because, all right, all I have is a PlayStation 4. And unless one of you folks ponies up to buys me a Pro, I'm not getting a Pro.
Probably not going to happen.
But don't do that. That was not a...
We can't even get them to give us $1 a month on Patreon.
We can get a lot of them to do that. Not as,
Patreon.com/withoutprogames. $1 a month gets you 4 episodes of Litterbox every single month.
And don't buy me a PS4 Pro. That was not a passive aggressive way of asking for it. My point is, I don't care.
Without Pro Games, P.O. Box 133, Worcester, Massachusetts. So
maybe he wants a second one just in case his first one dies.
No, I'm good. But that is the thing, though, right? It's like I think when PlayStation 4, the fact that PlayStation VR, PSVR can run on PlayStation 4 proper is mind-boggling to begin with.
Yeah,
this thing is so old. It is. How old is the PlayStation 4 now? 4 years old?
Something like that. Yeah,
it's getting pretty old. And the fact that you have to have a pretty powerful PC to run an Oculus Rift or a HTC Vive, it's kind of magical that VR works on PlayStation 4 at all. And so if you've never tried a Pro, then don't worry about the differences. This is still Skyrim in its entirety with all the DLC in VR.
Yeah. You definitely. You do take a graphical hit. I'm not going to say you don't. That would just be untrue. Also, let's call a spade a spade. You take a graphical hit playing Skyrim in VR. Period. If you were one of the ones who ponied up for the special 4K ultra high def edition that came out, this is not even close to that. This is not even close to, again, the 360 graphics that I originally played it on.
Yeah. Because
you're in VR and because we've got all those issues there, but the sense of actually being there more than makes up for the sense of the loss of fidelity.
Yeah. After a certain number of minutes, or maybe over a course of an hour or two, you kind of forget that you're playing a video game anyway. You kind of forget that the graphics are an issue. But just for anyone who's concerned, or for anyone who's curious, or anyone who hasn't bought a PlayStation 4 or is waiting to know which one you should buy, this, again, is the very first time I'm ever going to say this, or have ever said this. This is a good reason to get a PlayStation 4 Pro over a standard PS4.
Yeah.
It's absolutely, the difference is huge. I think the colors pop more, the resolution's better, everything just looks prettier in general, and it's a little easier to forget that you're in a game overall.
Yeah.
But again, you'll be happy with either one, I promise you.
So since we're doing compare and contrasts, let's talk about the other most common question people ask on the live stream.
Such a huge question.
Move controllers versus DualShock.
Yeah.
Which one should you use?
And we haven't talked about this.
Yeah, we haven't, which is kind of interesting because I think I have a very different take on it.
You might be surprised.
Okay.
So you're the motion sickness guy.
Yes.
And so I want to know, first and foremost, with your experience using the DualShock 4, running around the countryside, full locomotion / direct movement. I'm not sure which one we're using yet. How did you feel?
So what I've found is very similar to my experience with Resident Evil 7.
Okay.
I've got a good hour or so in me, and then I start feeling it. Even more so in the dungeons.
Interesting.
Yeah. So out in the open world and the holds, it was pretty easy. I could probably handle it for more than an hour. But for some reason, being in the dungeons, having to do all the turning and all that, it was not great. In fact, kind of near the end of the live stream, I set it on.
That's right.
I lasted an hour, partially because we wanted, of course, to let Brian finish out his 12 hours kind of by himself, but also because I was done. I did try playing the next day. I played about an hour and a half with basically the and props to Bethesda. You want control over comfort settings.
Yep.
They have everything. You want to control. You want to do smooth click turning. Do you want to control the angle, the field of view? You can control. You want the field of view to snap in only when you're turning? Great. You want to snap in when you're moving and turning? Great. You want to snap in all the way a little bit? Total granular control of all of that. With the field of view zeroed all the way down, that was better.
Yeah.
It was still, again, a little over an hour, maybe 2 hours, and I wasn't super happy, but it wasn't like, oh my god, I'm going to vomit, I have to take this off.
All right, so that's what DualShock 4.
That's what DualShock 4. With today, I spent probably the longest I've spent in Skyrim. 4 hours total. It was like 2 hours and 2 hours. Oh my gosh, it was great
With move controls.
with move controllers. Yeah,
Teleporting or direct movement?
well, as far as the motion sickness goes,
Yeah.
Teleporting.
Okay.
And here's the thing: I'm usually the one to go to bat for teleporting. Everyone hates on it so much. There are some definite issues with teleporting. Moving just. I want to get there. Click, 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 click.
Yeah.
Because they don't give you this huge span to teleport from.
Yeah, it's not a lot.
Yeah. And then of course there's actually a certain range that, because in regular Skyrim, I guess in the DS4, whatever, direct motion, whatever they're calling it, you can walk, but if you run out of stamina.
Yep.
And you're dead. So they kind of copy that over with the teleportation. You can do this further teleport a few times, but that
Kills your stamina.
All
right.
So I understand the nonsense there,
But move controls in general.
Yeah.
So I think almost every single episode of Why We Love PlayStation VR, we've gone to bat for move controls.
Yes.
Because since you kind of hated on them before you tried them in VR because there's a good reason to. They didn't have a great name on PlayStation 3.
Work.
Sometimes, but more importantly, they actually do track pretty well, and they work pretty well, and they really add to that level of immersion in PlayStation VR. And so we always try the move controllers, and I think we give the move controllers maybe a little more credit than they deserve sometimes, just because they add to that immersion.
Yeah.
Now, it's tough when you have two move controllers with no analog sticks on them. Please sign the petition. I'll put the link in the description. But so you're in this game specifically. It's very raw data. Like you're holding down the move button on your left hand, and then kind of pointing where you want to slide around. It's like, do I want to walk over here, or behind me?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And so you're moving around that way, and it takes a little while to get used to. In the live stream, I was inundated with comments, people trying to convince me that there's smooth turning available, and I promised you, at the time of this filming, there is not smooth turning available with the move controls. Hopefully, by the time this episode actually goes live, Bethesda's patch will come through, and it'll be there for you, but not there currently. Now, that's fine, right? I actually get used to click turning. It's pretty easy. Just a couple of the face buttons on the right move stick. Pretty easy stuff. But the problem comes with pretty much everything else that you're trying to do, because there's so many buttons you need to learn in this game. Like things that bring up menus, things that bring up your quests, things that do the shouts. Every time I tried to bring up a menu, I would use a shout. And I'm like, that's not what I was trying to do. And it got real irritating.
Especially and the guards got real upset.
Especially when I was doing it on the stream and people were watching me, and I was like, man, I feel like I'm being judged. I want to learn this on my own. For the next 12 hours, I want to kick back on my couch and just play this game in comfort, like a first-person shooter like that I'm very familiar with.
Well, and that's a discussion we had, again, immersion is the gong everyone bangs on for VR. And for good reason. I mean, that's kind of the reason we're playing VR.
Yeah.
And for people who have been kind of raised in the generation of first-person shooters, it is very natural for us to have that controller.
Absolutely.
So, we are immersed with that, and giving us any other control scheme, even one that ostensibly could give greater immersion, it can break the immersion for us.
Right.
But here's, I think, where we're going to be a little different. I started out on the move controllers, kind of listening to what Brian said, and actually, yes, coming to that same awkwardness myself. Like, oh my God, there's all these buttons here. I keep doing the wrong things. because I had click turning and I was using teleportation. It wasn't using.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. After about, I don't know, half hour, 45 minutes, it started clicking. No pun intended.
Pun intended.
Yeah. And I found there was things that were actually easier to do with the move controllers.
Yeah.
Like having the shout was easier to access the shouts on this than it ever was in the DS4. The Xbox. Anyways, that's gonna. Here's the thing. I'm a stealth archer. I admit it. So are you. You might try to pretend you're on it, but you ended up being a stealth point. He's avoided that. I don't know how. Mm-hmm. So I love my archery, and I initially started doing that. But with the move controllers, all of a sudden the sword kind of feels pretty cool.
Yeah.
And once you get the range, because the distance is a little wonky at first, it's great. A wolf jumps out from behind a rock. I have it timed, and boom, there we go. And it's a very satisfying feeling. When you're going through a dungeon, you can actually go ahead and just pick up something or point to the person you want to, the corpse you want to rifle through. You're actually pointing to it instead of just moving crosshairs over it. It's super satisfying, having the spell on one hand. And let's talk about archery. It brings, if you are an archer, it brings the whole, you pull it and you're actually aiming the target. And there's no little crosshair. Like even on the when you're using the the DS4, there's still crosshairs. Now the crosshairs move when you move your head,
right,
which is pretty cool and very natural tracking. And when I played it, like, oh, that's awesome. But now there's no reticle, there's no crosshairs. So you need to aim by looking down the actual arrow you're holding and fire. It's so satisfying, and it really does. Yeah, there is a steep learning curve. It takes a while to just bang your head against learning where all the buttons are and how to navigate through them. But once you get that, it feels pretty cool.
So I'm basically just gonna mimic everything you just said.
All right. Okay.
I totally agree 100%.
Really? All right.
I think as far as this game goes, if you really want to feel like you're playing this game the way it's meant to be played, grab your move controllers because they are phenomenal. It took me way longer than it took all of you to learn this stuff. Some people are like, oh, after 20 minutes I was all set. I was like, after 90 minutes I was pretty much set.
Yeah, it took a while.
Yeah, so there I am. I'm like, moving around using direct movement, and here I am. I've got my fire in one hand and electricity in the other hand, or whatever destruction magic I've got queued up, and I'll tell you, seeing my hands in VR and just hitting that trigger and way more satisfying. Mm-hmm. I'm running around killing bunnies. I'm running around killing deer. Anything gets in my way. Oh, you want to trade with me? Nope.
Yeah.
Because I feel so powerful. It's super hot VR all over again, right? Because you just feel like a badass, and that's not something that many games let you do. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. Running around and using the DualShock 4, you get to kick back. You get to sit back on your couch and you can play for 20 hours. But this, you don't have to stand to do it. You can just kind of lean forward on the couch. That works. Or you can stand if you really want to get into it.
Yeah.
But damn, these things feel good.
And I'll have to say, for those of you who are like, oh, we want to see Des get scared. We want to see... Well, you wanted the camera on me this afternoon because I was standing, had my stuff, and oh, there's a wolf pack. These two wolves are coming at me. I've got this. Boom, boom, I get attacked from the back. Holy, and I literally jumped and turned around and swung. And it was just so natural. But because I was so present there, I was physically actually scared when something came up from behind me. Yeah. And that's something I had never, ever gotten, even playing in VR with the GH4. There's just this level of detachment you get when your hands are doing this that goes away when you're actually swinging your weapon. So, yeah,
I love this game.
Let's see. I think, man, those are my big notes.
It's kind of the basics.
We promised tips and tricks.
This is all you because like I said, after 30 hours, I still don't know what the hell I'm doing.
So one thing that many Skyrim veterans will tell you is don't be a pack rat. You're going to pick up every potion, everything you can find. Those little potions, they add up in weight. You only have so much room you can carry, or so much weight you can carry. And you're not going to want to have to just be doing your inventory management, dumping all this stuff because there's some cool piece of gear. So you know what? You don't need more than 10 of anything, pretty much, except maybe arrows or lockpicks.
I will actually throw a little addendum here.
Yeah.
I have not yet updated or upgraded my stamina.
Oh.
Because I was unaware that stamina had anything to do with anything other than sword swinging and running.
Oh, yeah.
And so just so you know, apparently you gain, what, five inventory points or whatever you want to call it every time you level that up. And so, yeah, I definitely need to do that because I'm constantly at 300 just weighed down, over encumbered constantly.
Yeah. So, I mean, the key is go do a quest, pack up, go to a town, sell everything.
That's so hard to remember to do because usually the second you get out of a quest, you're like, oh, what's over here?
Yeah.
It's so distracting constantly.
It is, but, just a little bit of discipline like that. And early on in the game, so before, it takes a while for you to be able to afford your first own house. It's like 5,000 gold for the first house you can get in Whiterun. If you go in Whiterun, there's the house you should be able to buy. So you walk in the front gates of Whiterun. There's the blacksmith shop. There's another little house. That's the house eventually you'll be able to buy. If you go back to the left behind that, you'll see a house that has a couple barrels and some wood. If you look behind the barrels, there's a chest. That is one of the handful of places in the game where if you put something in that, it will stay in there.
Oh.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it's a little, you can experiment. There are other places in the game where you can, deposit things and it'll stay there. But make sure you test it first. But that is one of them. It can take pretty much everything. So if you don't want to sell stuff, you want to be a pack rat, do me a favor, dump your stuff in there. Do yourself a favor.
Now, I bought a house in Whiterun.
Yes.
And if I put stuff in my house, it'll stay there, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Like in any drawer, any cabinet, anywhere.
Any property you own, your stuff will stay there. So if you decide to use the move controllers, well, and you decide to do teleporting, you can kind of get through bars that you shouldn't be able to get through.
Oh.
If you aim it just right, sometimes the little angle goes through on the other side of the jail cell, and so you can go in. Places where you'd have to pick the locks before, maybe you don't have to. And getting around traps,
much easier.
Much easier. Ooh, there you go, just jump over it. So
it kind of breaks the game a little bit.
Yeah, it is, but I'll take it.
All right.
Yeah, like you said, it is a Bethesda game, and okay. I mean, they give us so much that these little things kind of stick out. And
are you okay with rating this thing?
Yeah, I think so.
Now, here's the thing. Up until this point, the biggest game we had was maybe the Solus Project or Resident Evil 7. Both pretty decently big games, but this just blows everything else out of the water.
Yeah, conservatively, most people estimate if you want to play it to completion, about 100 hours.
It's just insane.
Yeah.
So 100 hours, big open world, tons of stuff to do.
Yeah.
I don't even know what the story is, and I'm loving every second of it. There's no question in my mind. I don't care if this is the first time you've played this game or the 100th time you've played this game. This is worth every penny of your $60.
Yeah, and not only that, let's sweeten the pot a little bit. Yeah. This isn't just straight up vanilla Skyrim. Yep. This is Skyrim and the Dawn Guard and the oh my gosh, there's 3 other DLCs.
All the DLC guys.
Yeah, all the available DLC is part of this. So if you paid $60 for the first Skyrim the first time it came around, well, this is a bargain.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's rumors that we might be getting mods.
Really?
Yes.
That's quite a rumor.
That's quite a rumor.
Yeah.
But it is a rumor. There are mods for the oh my gosh, the PS4 version that just came out. There are mods for that. So maybe
we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But props to Bethesda because obviously they knew full well that there's not even 2 million PlayStation VR units out there. Mm-hmm. They knew that the maximum number of units they could sell was like 1.8 million. And they did it anyway.
And the thing is, they could have half-assed this. They could have had the Skyrim experience and just done like a 20-minute, thing that happened in the world of Skyrim. And honestly, people probably would have bought that too.
Probably.
But they didn't. They went through, they retooled the entire goddamn game for VR.
Yeah.
And they did it well.
Yeah, it's probably, I'm not going to even say probably. This is the reason to own a PlayStation VR. And the fact that Resident Evil 7 is like one of the greatest games in my book of all time. this is still, if we were to do a top 10 list today, this would be number one. Hands down, number one.
Wow.
Absolutely. Wow. Resident Evil 7, I mean, a distant second. But just because of the wealth of content in this game and just how much fun it is to just go out and do something different every day, it's calling me right now. It's saying, Brian, come back to this world, see what else we have for you. And I can't wait to see what they have for me.
Come back to Tamriel.
One of these days we're going to get through an episode without singing.
That's a deep cut for somebody out there. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about.
It's a 1.
Oh, no question. Yeah, I don't even need to talk about the other ratings. This is a 1. You know, I said before, like, for me, Spark was the game, like, you need to buy a PlayStation VR to play this. Yep. This is now the second game. Out of all the games I played for PSVR, there are a lot of games, like we said before, that if you have a PSVR, you need to play this. This is one of 2 games where you need to buy a PSVR so you can play this game.
Absolutely. Yep. 100% agree. This is one of the coolest things I've ever done in my life.
And this is someone who was sick of Skyrim before. Okay? All
right. I love it. All right, you guys. So make sure in the comments below you tell us your Skyrim stories. Let us know how many times you've bought this game. But more importantly, let us know what other games you want us to talk about. You know, we're going to get maybe back on our normal routine of pulling stuff out from the waybacks, the 13 months ago. And let us know what you want us to talk about. And that said, as for PlayStation, why we love PlayStation VR, that's the name of this show. I'm Brian Paul.
I'm Desra.
And we'll see you next week.